Nice.
Yeah, you look handsome.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hi, everybody. It's Wednesday night. Welcome to another episode of the Bo and Joe Show. Bo ducked out. I'm not sure where he is, but here he is. We're back. It was almost the Joe Show, but now it's back to the Bo and Joe Show. Welcome. We're gonna talk about a bunch of things today. First of all, let me say hi to my co-host Bo. How's it going tonight, Bo? What's happening?
Hi, Joe. Sorry to scare you, but I forgot the most important thing I needed, which was my lip balm. So I was like, I can't go an hour without having my lip balm. So I'm sorry to scare you. How are you?
Great minds think alike. I got mine as well. So
there you go. So
we might have to endorse a product. We could have the Bo and Joe lip gloss or the lip balm. I don't know if you want to go with the lip gloss, but we'll manly it up and go with lip balm. But it could be our first merchandise, our first product, the Bo and Joe lip balm.
Lip balm might work for me. Lip gloss, that brings back memories of my daughter, that little itty bitty stage where, she's doing makeup, and I'm past that now. Plus she's 21, so those I'm past that. So we're good. We're good.
Well, women wear lip gloss too. It's not just reserved for little girls, Bo. So you could be giving it out on some dates. It could be in your Christmas gifts, your holiday packages. The Bo and Joe lip gloss. We could be a dual line. One product for men, one product for women.
Okay, I hear you. I'm with you.
All right, so let's delve into our topic of one of our topics. So let's jump into the Olympics. I don't know if we want to start with the big story. I mean, COVID is actually overshadowing the games in many respects. It's sweeping through. No, I say sweeping, but I expect that it's going to sweep through the Olympic Village. It's taken a toll and a hit, and we have some Olympians who have to potentially abandon their lifelong dreams. Some are in their 30s and might not make it to another Olympic game. What are your thoughts?
Yes, it's disappointing. I felt like they should have never. I know to go 2 years without it would have been difficult, but the location where the Olympics is taking place made it problematic, and it's coming true. They didn't have the ability to control the environment like the American sports teams did. The NBA, NFL, they kind of control their environment better. The WNBA control their environment. A lot of schools, colleges, universities did a really good job of controlling their environment. But that environment, their COVID numbers or their shots, in terms of how many people have gotten shots in their country, is not even close to ours. So you're talking about over 200 countries bringing athletes. So if you got 200 countries times at least, and let's say the average number for all 200 countries is 100 athletes, that's a lot of people to try to manage. That's just tough. So yeah, it's difficult.
It's difficult. And they've said from the beginning that they were going to be COVID safe, not COVID free. But I think that, that's difficult to accomplish. COVID safe, and that's so subjective, and it gives you a wide latitude. I mean, yesterday they announced that they asked one of the, I forget who it was, one of their leading officials, if they would still consider canceling the games, and they said it's not off the table. So the games may be canceled if it becomes really problematic. And I think there's also an ethical component. Some Olympians are being, they're out for the duration because they may only have one event, and that event is coming up potentially in the next week. So they're going to be quarantined. So their chances are totally scuttled. Then you have others who may be out for a game, the sports that, are enduring. You like, let's say softball, you have one game this week, then you have two games in the championship, maybe in 2 weeks. And then they also spoke about, I believe it's the Czech Olympic Committee is going to ask that the beach volleyball game be postponed because one of their two, and maybe it's even two now today. I forget if I read that the second player, if they both tested positive, the beach, it's one, two-man team, and they're going to ask that the volleyball match be postponed. But is that fair? If you can't postpone any other sport, why are we going to do it for really two men? I don't necessarily think that that's fair either. What do you think?
Oh, if they do, it's going to be the beginning of chaos. Yeah, right? It's going to be the beginning of chaos. So if you go from 80 to 85 athletes that have tested positive, and the games start on Friday, if those numbers jump from 80 to over 100, you're going to start seeing people drop out. Yeah. And then you're going to start seeing people being pulled out by their individual coaches by saying it's not worth it. So once those two scenarios start happening, then it's going to be time for whoever is responsible for making that decision to cancel it or to crush it. Yeah, it'll be time.
I also read today that Japan is having its highest COVID number since since January when they were at their peak. So I think that I expect that things are going to skyrocket. Those numbers are going to skyrocket pretty quickly because they're in such tight quarters. I mean, historically, the Olympic villages are already tightly packed, and I don't know if things have changed. Luckily, there aren't any spectators, but they're talking about the spread with the limited amount of people that they have. So they're at their highest numbers without spectators, which means that the Olympians are going to suffer, I believe.
Yeah. So if you take 200,000 athletes plus another 100,000 staff workers, folks who are working the events, that's a small city, right? or you know what I mean? Not a small, but a mid-sized city, right? So there are cities in the United States and towns that have less people than that their numbers are bad. So how are they going to be able to control that? So no, it's we'll see, but I think it's about to.
I think too. I mean, and think about it. So we have a U.S. gymnast who's tested positive, what's her last name? Kara Eaker, who's one of the gymnasts. She's an alternate gymnast. And, Simone Biles is a top commodity. Are they going to risk Simone getting it, or does Simone have it herself? And we don't know who's vaccinated or not. There's a potential that some athletes are vaccinated and may be able to carry on. That's an ethical decision that people were making. So, it'd be interesting to know. I don't think we're not going to be told that unless the athletes themselves want to tell the media about that personal decision. Some may not. And there's another controversy, and I don't know if you read this, about one of the, synchronized swimming has been reclassified and it's now called artistic swimming. But and one of the swimmers was told that she couldn't bring her son to Tokyo. She's breastfeeding and he's under 1, and she was told that she couldn't bring him. So that's starting an entirely different controversy. That's certainly. I feel compelled to comment on it because I'm a woman, of course, and a mother, and I think that to be separated from your son who's under 1 for several weeks, they did say that he could travel to the country, but it wouldn't be in close proximity to her, and it would certainly be difficult to accomplish that. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's certainly, I believe that that's controversial and that should have been reconsidered. Certainly, she did appeal it, and she received the same response that she did a year ago, and it's, I think that some special consideration should have been made for any young mothers coming into the games who needed accommodations.
Well, it sounds like that they weren't prepared for every potential scenario, right? That's what it sounds like. They're not prepared. How about another one? I'll give you another one. I saw there's a young lady who is deaf and partially or almost blind, and she could not bring her mother, who is her assistant, right? They had, so I guess there's still not Special Olympics, but that category of disabled.
The Paralympics?
Paralympics, forgive me, Paralympics. So instead of each individual athlete having their personal trainer or assistant, what they did was they have 11 personal assistants for 30 or 40 athletes. That's not 1-to-1 ratio. So this young lady who was not in position, but she was favored to win the gold medal, decided not to go because she couldn't bring her mother. It sounds like the Olympic Committee and the people running this thing didn't prepare. I mean, if you're going to have the Olympics during a pandemic, you also have to think about all the other things that come along with that. And it sounds like they weren't prepared. So it's basically an S show, right? It's turning out to be one, right? We've got Coco Gauff, who's not playing because she had COVID or came into contact with somebody that had COVID. So, I think in 3 or 4 days, we're going to find out that this thing is it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah. I think oftentimes behind the scenes at the Olympics, I love the games and I am an avid watcher, but I think oftentimes there's always something going on. I remember Ryan Lochte 4 years ago and the chaos that he caused with his stunt. I don't even know what it was, and I forget what it was. Some trumped up charges that I believe he said he was attacked or mugged or his wallet was stolen or something. And
I remember that. Yeah,
and I think that there's always some kind of chaos. I think they're young people. Some of them aren't young, but some of them are, and they're in a party atmosphere and they get together and there's always some kind of chaos. And oftentimes the people in their 20s. I want to say Justin and Randy are both on and saying hello. Justin brings up a great point. He's talking about the U.S. women's soccer team lost to Sweden.
Yeah.
They were expected to sweep it and to come out on top, and they didn't. So they're coming into a deficit right from the jump, which I think is surprising.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you and I had the conversation, prior. I'd rather watch the women's soccer team than watch the men's, because the men's have disappointed us for so many years. The women's team is just flat out awesome. They compete, they win. And so let's see let's see what happens. But yeah, and I believe that team is a thorn in their side. I believe they've lost to them before.
They did. I mean, Justin's saying, and I don't know for sure, but Justin's saying that they lost to They lost to them in Rio in 2016. And so that may very well be true.
That is correct. Nope,
Yeah.
he's correct. Yep. So there's nothing like losing to a team you know you shouldn't lose to, or a team that beat you and you're trying to have that revenge game. And this year was a great year because no other team had won the World Cup and then have a chance to win the gold medal. So I don't, let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. And I was happy to hear the announcement. I believe it was yesterday. I'm a big Michael Phelps fan. I like him out of the pool as well as in the pool. I think he has a compelling backstory, and he's really risen. I love his story of being, I believe he had ADHD as a young man and started hanging out at the Y and then became the most celebrated Olympian of all time. And now he's joined the NBC team as a commentator. He's going to be sitting poolside and part of the Olympic team in that respect. So I think the Olympics, that's a benefit. He's someone who's engaging and personable, and I was pleased to hear that announcement. I'm not sure if you're a Michael Phelps fan, but I certainly am.
Oh, no question. I like winners, right? I like winners. I follow this story. I can swim. If we want to talk about diversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
That old stereotype that people of color can't swim, that's not necessarily true. It's really based on where you grew up. If you grew up in an inner city, I grew up in Florida, plenty of beaches, and I learned how to swim. So I used to give a lot of my teammates grief about and challenge. Matter of fact, I think we might have talked about this. My freshman year, I lived in a dorm where we had there were classrooms in my dorm. There was a swimming pool, a basketball court, and the cafeteria. I used to go swimming in my dorm. I used to sneak in the pool because I could swim. But anyway, yeah, I like Michael Phelps. And he is an NBC Universal, which is carrying the Olympics, my old boss, Comcast. They pulled a lot of former athletes, if not from the Olympics, who did well in the Olympics, but maybe did well in their individual sport. And so at least folks will be able to recognize some of the names, and they bring a level of expertise to the competition that a typical sports announcer may not be able to. So I think it's a good thing.
I agree too. And it's, for years and years it was Bob Costas. And I think that they decided that, it's time for him I believe he's on in a limited fashion, but remember he used to dominate the coverage. There was nobody else. And I do like him. I just think it's out of tradition and history. He's certainly a knowledgeable figure as well, but he wasn't, I think you're right. I think the diversity, and that's what we're about here, it really diversifies the field. And I enjoy seeing other commentators behind the mic. What do you think about how are the men's basketball team doing? I heard that they're not doing as well as we projected either.
Well, like I say, there are warm-up games. I'm curious to know if the women's soccer was a warm-up match or was it an official game, because the games don't officially start until Friday. So I'm curious to find out if that was the case. The games that the men's basketball team lost were basically warm-up games, if I'm not mistaken. They just need chemistry, right? Because these guys are coming from all, other teams. They're coming together. They just need time to gel. They're also, it's not like they're a dream team. That's also different. So, guys having the ability to come from, other teams who are borderline, like they're superstars, but they're not in terms of LeBron James, Kevin Durant level, right? So some of those guys will have an opportunity to prove that they belong in a conversation, in the top, 15 guys in the league versus the top 5 guys in the league. So this is another way to do it, right? show your stuff worldwide during something that's important, the Olympics, if they can finish, right? If they can finish. So we'll see. Yeah.
So I'm going to say and Justin's confirming it as well, but the soccer match was an official game. And I had read that as well. It was an official game. I think that some games are being played before the opening ceremonies. The opening ceremonies are on Friday, but some games are being held. And Randy is saying, Randy's saying this is interesting, and this is a stereotype. This is the counter stereotype. Randy can't swim. Randy Cox, our friend, can't swim, and that's certainly, well, we might have to work on that. We have a lot of things we're working on, Randy.
Well, ask Randy, where did he grow up? Right? What are the circumstances that he can't swim? Did he grow up, in a rural farm area? Did he grow up in a city where there weren't any swimming pools, or not near the shore? Sometimes that has more to do with it than the old stereotype, right?
You're right, but right now I know he lives on a coastal town in Oregon, so he could certainly be swimming. I believe he grew up there, so I'm not sure.
Or he could just be afraid of water.
He could be. We're going to have to get the back scoop on that, on Randy. So we're talking about basketball. What do you think? So the Milwaukee Bucks pulled it out, the first title in 50 years. I think that was and I believe they were the underdogs, weren't they? They were underdogs going in, or were they were they projected to win?
What, the NBA title? No, I think it was. My opinion, they were both even. I wasn't rooting for one over the other because selfish reasons. Villanova had a player on each team, Dante DiVincenzo, who got hurt. So he was a very important player during the season. And then Mikal Bridges, who was on the Suns team, the one with the very bright yellow, orangey probably shoes. So you could tell where he was at all times when they're running up and down the court. So either way, one Villanova guy won a championship ring. So
perfect.
Yeah. So I'm happy that it's over. I'm happy it's over. I am not a huge basketball junkie. I'll watch, but unfortunately, it just wasn't, or maybe it's because of the mindset that I'm in, with my book release and all the other things I've got going on. Maybe that's why, but so I was just basically rooting for both Villanova guys for one of them to win a title, and one did.
So Justin is saying Giannis Giannis, I believe, is better than
Giannis.
LeBron. Giannis is, and his last name I may butcher, Antetokounmpo. I'm a fan of his as well, and not so much for his basketball prowess. But I don't know if you know anything about his backstory. He grew up in Greece. He's of Nigerian descent, and street peddler. He was a street peddler with his brother, selling trinkets on the streets as a teen to help his family. So I love the underdog story. I love how he rose above, and he seems very humble. He seems very. I like him. I think he's very personable. He even speaks about his last name. Pronounce it any way that you want. Yeah, I've seen him in a video trying to help others pronounce his name, and I just like that about him. I don't know about I don't want to weigh in on who's the better basketball player, LeBron or Giannis, but I think they certainly both have talent and skill. I don't like to qualify talent. I still have an affinity for Michael Jordan. He's always going to be my go-to guy, and that probably speaks to my age. But again, I like many things about Michael Jordan, and back when he was, the three-peat and all of those things that, up and coming. So he's probably always going to be my number one. But I don't know if we want to even go into that. I'm not as knowledgeable about basketball players, and I think there's certainly a discrepancy in personalities there.
Who posed the question?
Justin.
What I'd say to Justin is, the way I determine the best basketball player in the NBA is not based on the team winning the championship that year. Sure, other sports writers and commentators might do that because it's easy to do. You pick the best player on the team that wins the championship. But when you're talking reality, LeBron's on the tail end of his career and Giannis is just getting started. So that's like comparing Allen Iverson to Michael Jordan when Michael was on his way out and Allen Iverson crossed him over and shook him and broke his ankles, right? Allen was a rookie in the NBA, and Michael was, I think it was his last year before he went on to play, retire or retire and then go to the Washington Wizards. So yeah, they're not in the same category. I would say someone in the same category with Giannis would be Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant is not on the back end of his career. He may be on the back end of the height of his career, right? The prime time of his career. But Giannis has got to win 2 more titles before we bestow him with the title, the greatest basketball player in the NBA at this time. Nah, I'm not doing it.
He wasn't saying he's the greatest. He was just saying he believed he's better than LeBron. But
of course he is. LeBron is like 40 years old.
Yeah.
LeBron's on the back end of his career. So yeah. I would say, based on that, sure.
So Justin's calling out your friend here, Charles Barkley. So I don't know if Justin's aware that you and Charles are acquaintances, but
what did he say about CB?
So he's saying, and I can't speak to this, but he's saying the Chris Paul legacy is Charles Barkley never won a ring. And I don't know, is that true or?
Charles has never won a ring. That's why he can't. It's difficult. Hold on, let me see what Chris Paul's legacy is. Charles Barkley. Okay. Charles must have said something in the post game regarding Chris Paul. I'm assuming that's what Justin's bringing it up. The thing about being an anchor or a sports commentator or an analyst, especially if you are a former player, you have to be critical of the current athletes. And as a former athlete, most people think former and retired athletes should not be critical of the current players. But that's not their role, right? They get paid to be critical because of their experience, right? So they have to, people have to understand it and realize that. But Charles, because of his Southern upbringing, speaks his mind, says it plain and simple. He doesn't beat around the bush, right? So he probably said something that could be viewed as being too harsh regarding Chris Paul. And so when you do that in today's culture, right? People are going to call you out, and they're going to find a way to call you out. And so Charles has never won an NBA title. Even though he's in the top 50 of all time, he's never won a title. So people can use that against him and say, Charles, how can you be critical of people? You never won a title. So I can see his point.
Okay. Well, and I think too that there are many great players who have never won the elite, the championship of whatever sport they're in, of course. And it's especially when team sports, they don't always speak to the individual talents of one person. And I'm a Charles Barkley fan as well. So, and that was even before I knew that how closely aligned you were. So that's something interesting. So top three in Randy's position, he's saying number one is Jordan, number two is Barkley, and number three is Irving Johnson. So that's an interesting perspective. He's got Charles Barkley at number two.
That is hilarious. Well, Randy, I appreciate that. But listen, dude, I just had a birthday. I'm over 50. I'm not going to tell you exactly how old I am, but you can do the math. I graduated high school in '83. Here's what I'll tell you. I've never seen some of the older greats play, like Pistol Pete Maravich. I heard he was mind-blowing. But if I had to give you a top five, Joe, what they do in basketball, they do a Mount Rushmore, which is the top five of all time. Who would you put on the Mount Rushmore? And it has to be five, right? Because they're the starting five in basketball.
Right.
So my top five would be Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, number two, Wilt Chamberlain, number three. Even though I didn't see him play. So there's a question mark regarding Pistol Pete Maravich. And number five would be Oscar Robinson. And then number six, because you got to have a six man, right? Coming off the bench, would be Shaq.
Well, yeah.
Why? Because all those big men changed the game. Like they changed rules because of those big men. Back in the day, big men ruled, and they were the reason you won championships. And if you want to go with the old cliche of how many rings do you have? Well, Bill Russell has more rings than anybody.
No.
And he was a player coach. And he was the first player coach and as a African American, which was unheard of. So he's the GOAT.
Yeah. See, well, I don't know enough about it to weigh in, but I certainly trust your opinion. I'm a Kobe fan too, and I think I don't necessarily. Again, I think that his backstory is so complex and complicated, and I like that about people. I like when people overcome. He certainly wasn't a perfect man, but he had a discipline and a work ethic. He was a phenomenal father, which really resonated with me. And there were times throughout his life that I wasn't his biggest fan, and I won't say that I was his biggest fan, but I think I look at that. Michael Jordan too had an interesting and deep history in regard to the relationship with his father and his untimely death and murder, actually. So I think that all of those characters, I love hearing the stories about people, not only their athletic ability, but really what the backstory is in their lives.
Well, I'll tell you one thing before you move on. Since you brought up Kobe Bryant, he played high school basketball right up the street.
Really?
Yeah, basically around the corner, so to speak, about 3 or 4 miles from where I'm standing. He grew up on the main line, which is, part of where Villanova is. So yeah, Kobe was well known playing high school basketball in this area. Everybody knew he was going to go pro because he was that good. Yeah.
And he certainly did. So another tragedy. I mean, there's always triumph and intermingled with tragedy. You see that throughout life, but it's so much more pronounced when we see celebrities. And that's not to say that their life is any more valuable than anybody on the street. It's just that there's a different level of exposure when we see celebrities, and so. Oh, so Randy's saying he's got number 4 is Jabbar, number 5 is Shaq, and number 6 is is rounding out his Mount Rushmore. So that's interesting.
Okay. Oh, he got Malone. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that.
So who is he? You know who I always used to enjoy watching, and I'm not going to remember his name. He was on. He was. Remember that player? And I'm not going to recall his name, but he was like about 5'5".
Muggsy Bogues or Spud Webb.
No, I think it was Spud Webb. I was always a Spud Webb fan.
Yeah, he played for the Atlanta Hawks, and he won the NBA dunk competition during the All-Star game because he literally surprised everybody in terms of how short and small he was, and he was able to compete with the guys who could jump out of the building. So yeah, I remember that.
I really enjoyed him. And before we came on the air, you brought up football. That's something that I'm not as well versed in, but I'm gonna give the guys a shout out. They're pulling me into the fantasy football league. So by the end, I expect to sweep it. I have something to prove here to these guys. So I'm gonna have to learn as much about football in the next couple of weeks as possible.
Football. Hey, listen, more power to you. I don't participate. I don't play, but from my understanding, it is fun. It adds to the entertainment value of football. So yeah, I look forward to hearing how you do and hearing how you're coming along and playing it. So yeah. And then, if you want to call me up and ask for some advice, feel free to do so. I'll give you some good advice.
I might ask your advice right on air. I'm going to call out any female listeners or viewers that we have, and maybe we can get a team and think about you can impress your husbands and boyfriends with all the knowledge we're going to get behind the scenes. They don't know that you're hearing it from Bo himself, and hopefully we can shake up some pools and some fantasy leagues. However it works, I don't even know the terminology yet. That's going to have to be my first start. What do we call it? A league, a team, a pool? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to.
Well. The reason why you have to have someone who can give you advice, who comes at it in a realistic, lack of emotion, and the emotion involved. A lot of guys or folks who are participating, because it's really based on stats too, right? The player you select based on the player stats, what you expect that player to do, their potential ability to score touchdowns and first downs and all this kind of stuff. But I come from, when I give advice, I go, listen, here's what I see. That player, based on his position, based on who he's competing against that day, and I give you the real information. I leave emotion out of it, right? You have to leave emotion out of it because emotion will cause you to make bad picks and bad decisions. So that's my first advice. Leave emotion out of it when you're picking players and picking your teams. Oh, you know what I mean? Pick the guy from the team that you feel is going to accomplish what you're trying to do. So,
So you mean I just can't pick my players based on their team jerseys and colors? That's not going to work for me.
Oh no, we're way beyond that. And at this point, if you're going to be participating, we're way beyond that.
All right.
It's based on what the guy ran the 40 in, right? It's based on his competition. Can he get around the player that's opposite? Can he will the guy that he's up against? Because it's one will versus the other. Who's going to win, right? So, no. Right. But you keep the emotion out of it, you'll do fine.
Okay, so good news. I have Adam. Adam's chiming in, and he said it's easy. He's going to help me along the way. So he's very savvy in football. And Randy's wishing me luck, and he says that when he plays fantasy football, it's random of who he chooses. He goes for the underdogs. plus a few people from my Cowboys. And Jason is on, and he's giving you a shout out. He's saying, very well said, Bo. So I'm not sure which part. So we're just going to say the whole episode. Jason liked everything you said for the whole episode, because we can't just quantify one thing. Everything you say is phenomenal, Bo. So I'm going to agree with Jason there.
Jason is a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you, bud.
And I will second that. He is a gentleman for certainly. And I'm not sure what he's calling out, Randy. I'm not sure about what. So now what? So you want to talk about football a little bit? That's your sport. It's coming up. We're actually going to have a new show on the network. I don't know if I told you about that. And that's going to be called, I think it's going to be called Beat the Spread. And we're going to have a handicapping show on, and that'll be interesting. Chris, the producer, does a Die Hard football podcast, and the guys are gearing up for a morning tailgate show on Sunday morning. So they're going the full gamut with these football shows. So you might have to hop on and help them out on one of those shows as well.
Wow. Yeah, it's you're right. It's getting close. Things are going to start happening. Yeah, football season is around the corner, 2 or 3 weeks away. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I was one of those players that I didn't scream in the locker room before the game. I didn't bang my head up against the locker. I didn't slap teammates on their shoulder pads. I basically was quiet, was in my, was in my own zone, focused. I didn't start to really show my personality until the ball was kicked off, and I tried to light somebody up. So that's when I got animated. So every player is different. So I don't really get hyped until the season officially starts. What is it? You have a Thursday night kickoff, Sunday games, and then Monday has 2 games, an early game and then a late game. So that official weekend, starting with Thursday, Sunday, then Monday, that's when football season starts, right? For me, that's when it counts.
Is that Labor Day weekend?
I didn't look at the dates yet, but it should be right around, September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, the first week of September.
So Jason's posing a question to you. He's saying not even COVID could stop the NFL. That is how untouchable the NFL is. What are your thoughts on that, Bodine?
Not even COVID could stop the NFL. Yeah, the NFL is they manage it pretty well. Again, football, American football, even though they try to play a similar game in Canada. That's what's great about American football. It's the only game on the planet, and they manage it well from the owner standpoint, from the league standpoint. They're getting better at some of the issues they've had, regarding concussions and things of that nature. But hey, it is again, I'm being biased. It's the best sport on the planet. So there's more money. There's more money in the NFL than probably any other sport. The NFL has the most. The Dallas Cowboys is how do I want to say this? The Dallas Cowboys is worth more than any other team on the planet, right? So that just goes to show you that football is, rules. So, I'm partial to the league. I love football.
So let me expand on Jason's question a little bit. I mean, does the NFL? I assume they have protocols in place for COVID, and what? And that's another question. We'll bring that up in a minute. But what do you think is going to happen? I mean, are they going to do a similar functionality that the MLB did? That they'll be postponing games, and because they're not going to abandon that season again. Certainly. Yeah.
They're going to have to do something with this particular variant because it's easily catchable, right? Lack of a better word. So they're going to have some very strong protocols. I've read or heard early on, there were a few guys talking about if the league mandates them getting the shot, they will retire. Well, listen, you can't fight City Hall. If the league says every player has to get the shots, I don't know if they're going to do it, but if they say it, believe me, players will get it done, right? Because, there are some guys who are making minimum who want to move up the depth chart. And then there are some guys who are making big money who don't want that flow of money interrupted. So yeah, nothing's ever 100% in terms of agreement amongst players. But if the union has to get involved, I mean, it's just like the strike, right?
Right.
These guys have to be on the same page. It's the union's job to get them all on the same page. And one thing, there's a saying in the NFL, it might have trickled over to other sports. Don't mess with another man's money. You mess with another man's money, especially if that man is 6'6", 320 pounds, and you're 6 feet and 200 pounds. You don't want that. You don't want that happening. So the NFL players can police themselves. That's what the union's for, to allow them to police themselves. So sure, you're going to have some guys in the beginning talk about, what they will and will not do. But the owners are going to say, this is what we want to happen because we want our fans in the stands, right? Because they got to make money, right?
And they suffered last year.
Yeah.
So Chris, bring Jason's question back up. I think this is an interesting question. I didn't even know that was not that one, not Justin. Jason, where he's asking, do you think there will ever be a team in London?
It's funny. That's a good question. The owner of my hometown Jacksonville Jaguars is I don't even know his name. He is from London or the UK. And I've always said to my family members, I think he wants to move the team over there because the Jacksonville Jaguars every year volunteer to have a game over there because nobody wants to go. No, most players don't want to travel to the UK to play that game, right? So, but he, as the owner, volunteers all the time. I think the league, sure, they want to have a team over there, but how would that logistically work, right? Yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about how it would all work out. But for some reason, my gut feeling has been telling me for years that the owner of my hometown Jacksonville Jaguars would love to have that team permanently in the UK.
That's funny. And Justin's saying I don't know how to pronounce the first name, but Shad Khan, he's saying, I don't know if it's Shad or Shad Khan must be the gentleman you're talking about. Randy saying he doesn't see a team going to London. I love London. I might actually go to a game if we move it to London.
Yeah,
Ireland, let's do it.
Yeah. So like I said, my gut tells me the owner wants to, but I just don't see how it would happen because all the other 30 plus teams don't like going over there because it athletes are creatures of habit. They have a routine. Traveling over there destroys their routine.
And not only that, I mean, think about the economical issues. You're taking money from cities in the U.S. and we're going to bring it over to Europe and spend dollars over there. I think that fans may have an issue with that. Their hard-earned dollars over there because there's very few people are going to be, even the player, obviously the players have to travel, but what local fans are going to be traveling there, and be very few and far between. So let me ask you this. I don't know if we've ever clarified this. What's your favorite professional football team? Bo, you got the Eagles, you got you got your hometown team. I don't know if we ever established that.
Oh my goodness. Ask me that question again while I plug in my computer because I'm about to run out of power. Ask me that question again.
I said, who is your favorite professional football team? Which team?
I am an Eagles fan. For those who haven't bought and picked up my book yet, you should. I started out a Cowboys fan because I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's what was on my grandmother's TV after church on Sunday, every Sunday during football season. But once I came to Philadelphia and I've been here longer. I left Jacksonville when I was 18 and 18 and a half years old. And so I haven't lived in Jacksonville since then. So I've lived in the Northeast in Philadelphia market, minus 4 years in New York. So I've lived here longer. So when you have teammates, former classmates, like we had a track guy from New Jersey, Martin Booker, who was a wide receiver for the Eagles. He lived next door to me. I wrote about him in my book. He ran track. I had at least one or two teammates that were on the practice squad, offensive linemen, if I remember correctly, or defensive linemen. And then obviously Brian Westbrook, right?
Right.
So when you have guys from your school or your teammates or classmates over the years play for the Eagles, you start to build an affinity. I played catch with Randall Cunningham. I think I mentioned that last week. You run in the same circles as athletes over the years. So you meet a couple of guys, Gary Cobb, who was a player. So there's just a number of guys. So all those little meetings, those little, tidbits, then you just say, okay, now I'm an Eagles fan. See you, Cowboys.
Well, Randy and Chris are both huge Cowboys fans. They're ride or dies. And Randy saying that. And let's see, Jason had a question. Hurts or Wentz, Bodie and Sanders?
I don't think Wentz should have. I don't think they should have traded him. I understand why they traded him. Once you lose the locker room, you have no choice. And really the problem is you should have kept Nick Foles, because Nick Foles and Wentz were great friends and teammates. They were both spiritual guys. They prayed together. Their families hung out together. They might have went to church together. And there's a certain relationship quarterbacks have with each other. Either they're great or they're terrible. These guys had a great relationship. And the problem is that when you got rid of Nick Foles, which you shouldn't have, you should have paid Nick Foles. Nick Foles was the type of personality where you could have paid him starters money, but he would have accepted his role as backup because he's been in the league a long time. He was the veteran. He understood he was there to help, Wentz out, to be his security blanket. And then if he got hurt, he could come in and do what he did, help win the Super Bowl. But once you got rid of Nick, it was over. Wentz was basically a man on the island by himself. So what will Hurts do? We'll see. I mean, he played last year, but we all know in football, it's based on the eye in the sky, meaning what does the film say? Guys, the defensive coordinators didn't have a lot of time to study and prepare for him. They will this year. So let's see what he can do. Now he's got a former teammate from the University of Alabama, a wide receiver who won the Heisman Trophy. That's going, let's see how that works out. But to answer the question, I would not have gotten rid of Nick Foles. Therefore, I would not have gotten rid of Carson Wentz because they're the typical, prototypical quarterback. Hurts is not. That doesn't mean he can't be a great quarterback. That doesn't mean that. So hopefully.
Right. So we're getting down to our last 5 minutes of the show. Jason is saying Brian Westbrook is one of the most underrated players of all time. I'll let you weigh in on that. I'm not savvy on who Brian Westbrook is. So this is all you, Bo.
Oh, I agree with that. And he's up for the Heisman, not up for the Heisman. He's up for the Hall of Fame qualifications in terms of, the way the Hall of Fame works, Joe, is you don't just after 5 to 8 years, your name appears on a list and then sports writers pick your name to see if you go in, right, and get inducted. You actually, the player has to have a support team that basically reaches out to the committee and sell the committee on why that player deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. So it's a process. Whether or not Westbrook is going to go through that process, meaning he has a sponsor, someone who's going to fight for him and root for him and go to the committee and talk about his stats and hit what he did on the field and off the field. I think he'll eventually get in because he was special. Absolutely. Special teams, running back. The guy is, Joe, how tall are you?
I'm 5'5".
He was probably 5'6", but he made a career for himself. So I agree. He basically he was basically Howie Long 2.0. Everybody knew Howie Long came from Villanova, but Howie had been out of the league a while. So it's nice for a small school like Villanova to have a guy come along and also have the ability to keep our name, in public because it came from Villanova. From, small school, not Penn State, not University of Maryland, not Syracuse, right?
So Jason's saying he had the all-time combined yards from scrimmage. He is at the top 5. He's in the top 5.
He may not get in on the first selection, but he's getting in.
It makes me laugh when you asked about my height because, many of these guys haven't met me. And Jason had asked how tall I was at one point, and I said I pretended I was over 6 feet. Just talking about my height made me laugh for a minute. So, all right. So we're at the top of the hour. We have 2 minutes left. How do you want to close it out? Any teasers for next week? I guess we're just going to ride the Olympics. A lot can happen in a week. And then, so we're kind of just flying by the seat of our pants. By then, I may know who Brian Westbrook is. I'll be studying him up this week.
Yeah, number 36. One thing we didn't get a chance to talk about, but we'll talk about it next week because I wrote it down. Right. The Sports Illustrated issue. How do you feel? How do we feel about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue and the people appearing on Sports Illustrated? I believe there's a transgender model who made if not the cover, or at least inside the
I believe it's the cover. I'm not positive, but I thought it was the cover.
But someone else. What's the tennis player who decided not to do the
is it Naomi? Naomi.
Yeah, she's on the cover of something. So people are, there's talk about maybe she's not focused
Osaka,
on.
Right? Naomi Osaka.
Yeah.
I think, right. That's an interesting topic. I think mental health is something that should always be discussed. And I think that, I'd really like to talk about that. So we're already out of the gate. We have Sports Illustrated to talk about. We have yeah, the other covers. I'll look and see what she's on. Is she in Sports Illustrated or something else?
I know she. I don't know which magazine, but she did a fashion shoot for one of the big time magazines. It could be Time. I have no idea.
Yeah, and she's in the Olympics. She's in the Olympics. She decided to go ahead and head over to Tokyo. So we'll see how she does. It'll be interesting to see if she comes out on top. So it's 11 o'clock. That's it. Another hour flew by. You know, we never run out of things to talk about, and you keep me laughing. Thanks to all of our contributors. Randy saying, "Great job, guys. Great show." Thanks, Randy. Justin, tons of comments, and Brandon, hello. Brandon's coming in in the cleanup spot. Hi, Brandon, Jason, of course, and Adam. We appreciate all of your comments and participation. I'm going to tell Justin publicly to clean up your language. He's got a lot of obscenities on the side there. So I'm going to shout him out publicly. I usually give him some accolades, but I'm going to tell him to clean it up, and I'll talk to him on the side about that as well. But. So thanks, Bo. Love spending this hour with you. I'll talk to you for our pregame session later on this week. And I'll let you close it out. Well, before you close it, I'll let you close it out, but then I always have to give my main man, Chris, a shout, Chris P. Bacon. I have to give him a shout out.
No, I want to thank the guys for hanging with us tonight. Let's give them a homework assignment. Hey, guys, let's get some diversity on this podcast. Invite some of your female friends, family members, and let's grow this podcast so it'll be diverse, and we want all opinions and all commentary from the audience.
Yep, and Tim's coming in at the end. Hey, Tim, thanks for joining in. And yeah, I'm going to do some research, see how we can get some women in here and see what we're going to do about that, because I do like to be the center of attention, Bo. It's going to be hard to share the spotlight with another woman, but I'll have to do it. And speaking of women, I don't know if you watch Sports Minute, but we have a woman joining. She's coming back. I guess she was on hiatus, but tonight it's going to be a diverse crew of hosts on Sports Minute. So I'm looking forward to that coming on at midnight, Bo. That's late for us on the East Coast. We may have to catch the replay tomorrow, but I'm certainly looking forward to that.
Awesome.
So Chris, thanks. You're our main guy, and we can't do anything without your support and help. So I always like to say thank you to Chris before we close. So thank you, Chris. And
Thanks, Chris.
We'll see everybody next week. You can play us out, Chris. Thank you.